I love myself. I am very comfortable in my own company. I have no issues being alone, no issues being in solitude. The Great Nicobar project, वो तो पहले 80,000 crore का था, now it is 92,000 crore project, and you just want to build container yards. And for container yards, you are destroying an entire ecosystem. You are destroying the animals. You're destroying the livelihood of these people. 300 लोग क्या 300 लोग नहीं होते, उनकी जान नहीं होती, उनकी जान की कीमत नहीं है just because they are 300. This whole idea of strength or a woman being amazing because she's strong, that idea is propagated in our society to such an extent that women shy away from asking for help. I remember I went to the CJP protest and somebody's like, if Dharmendra Pradhan resigns, who do you think should be the education minister? I'm like, me. मुझे बना दो मुझे बना दो मैं सही काम कर लूंगी. So I wouldn't say I was joking because I think I would do a very good job.
I find it fascinating how so many people do not understand that there's an aspiration and feel that they are closer to a billionaire, but they do not recognize that there are 2 salaries away from being, hand to mouth. I don't know how this has been sold, but it has been sold at a massive level.
There is this line, no, Faiz ka, lambi hai wo gam ki sham, magar sham hi to hai. So there was somebody like, Faiz bhai, kitni lambi hai aur ye sham? It reminds me of that, Faiz bhai, hum kab dekhenge Faiz bhai?
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of The Ultimate Inquiry. I'm your host Pracheta Budhwar. Our guest today is someone who has given satire a new lease, someone who wears criticism as a badge of honor, someone who is a force to reckon with. Madhuri Kakoti is an assistant professor in linguistics, specializing in general linguistics, sociolinguistics, and language endangerment. Her academic training includes degrees from Jawaharlal Nehru University and the University of Delhi, closely followed by the Fulbright Language Teaching Assistant Fellowship at the New York University. Madhuri is popularly known as Dr. Medusa on social media, where she regularly shares her brilliant commentary. Dr. Medusa, welcome to The Ultimate Inquiry.
Hello. Namaskar.
When I was thinking where we start the conversation with, I thought, why don't we start from the start? Tell us about your growing up years. What was it like?
My growing up years? That's way back.
It's all right.
I was not expecting that. I grew up in Assam, in Nagaon, Assam. It's a very small town. And my parents, both of them are, I would like to think, very different, because the way that I have grown up, it's my life right now. What I do right now is a testament to what they have taught me throughout their lives, how they have themselves led their lives. My father is a writer. He's an advocate, and he was a bank manager. My mother was a professor of English literature. Both of them are retired now, and both of them are still continuing to do their work. They do their social work. They are very actively involved in society, in politics. They still write. They're also very anti-establishment, like I am. I think that's where I get it from. Not really anti-establishment, but they stand with what is logical, and they stand with what is right. They stand with people, the oppressed, and so on and so forth. So yes, that's where I get it from. I grew up in this very small town in Assam. I studied in Kendra Vidyalaya, and I was one of those. Ma'am, aaj आपने exam बोला था, आज unit test बोला था. I was one of those kids. So yeah. Now when I talk about this, I get to know that yes, I was pretty much hated because of being the teacher's pet. I was very overachieving, overperforming throughout my childhood. Into everything, jack of all trades. And then I went to Delhi University. I did my English literature. And then I went to Jawaharlal Nehru University, where I did my linguistics and eventually my PhD as well. So all of this has been like a very short introduction of what I have done as far as education is concerned.
Yeah, you gave a very resume. I did study from KV.
Yeah. It was a very resume-like answer, I understand. But I did not really know कि कहाँ से क्या बोलूँ, क्या है, कौन सा, what exactly led.
You are an introvert, Kate.
You
are
absolutely not.
Not, right? And were you like all over the
Absolutely.
place doing extracurricular and everything, first in
Absolutely,
everything?
100%. I would do everything and anything. I do have actually training in Indian classical music. I would dance, but dance में training नहीं है. Both my parents were working. They hardly cared what I was doing in school. No interference from my parents ever in either my education or my extracurricular. वो सिर्फ जाते थे जब मैं class 1 or 2 में I was a bully. So complaints आते थे तो मम्मी पापा जाते थे. That was the only time that they have gone.
So, Dr. Medusa, it's just been 5-6 years since we know of Dr. Medusa, or let's say of her existence, yet it
Yeah.
feels like a long time. When you look back, how have you evolved as a person and as a satirist in these 5-6 years?
I have definitely evolved as a person. Person wise, I would say that I have a lot more understanding of my own hang-ups as far as issues are concerned, issues that we have in our world, in our country are concerned. I have a lot more understanding now. I have an understanding about myself because this journey has actually led me to the therapist's door. It was very difficult because it's first of all it started from a very acute mental health crisis during the COVID.
Right.
Mentally, I was under a lot of pressure. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Or why do I deserve to, live? And there are people who are walking, thousands of people are walking from one end of the country to the other because we have not been able to provide them with the safety and security that is required in a nation, that is required for a society. Why do people live in a society? Why do people come together? Why did we come together all of these millions of years ago during evolution? Why did we come together? For safety, for security. Why have we as a country not been able to provide that for the most vulnerable of our people? And what have I done? Why do I get this privilege and why do other people don't get this privilege? So all of these questions, they really hurt me at that point of time. And I had started to think about it, and being on the internet perennially at that point of time, it kind of bombarded me with all of these images of the have-nots. And that was really difficult for me to, rationalize. That is what led to my entire journey, or this persona of Dr. Medusa on the Instagram, constantly questioning what have we done and what have the others, the have-nots, not done that they deserve a fate like that. I kind of think that I'm a very selfish person. This is like my own evaluation of myself, that I kind of think of myself a lot, and I did not really realize that is what would push me towards me putting myself out there on the internet. Because previously the internet was just a medium of consumption for me, a consumption of entertainment, consumption of news, consumption of education, but now it's something else as well. So yeah, I think I have grown as a person. I would like to think that I'm more empathetic. I would like to think that I'm more aware. I would like to think that now my politics also has more nuance and understanding. I also would like to think that I have grown impatient and intolerant of apolitical people, of bigotry, of bigoted people, of people who rationalize their hatred for any community, for communities, for minorities, for women. I have grown very intolerant and very impatient with such people. So yes, I don't know if that is growth, but that is how I have changed.
Yeah. So you are more in touch with who you are and
What I believe in. I think I'm more clear about what I believe in now. My politics and my belief system, I would like to say that it keeps changing because that's कहते हैं ना कि the more you read, the more you realize that you know nothing. That's the thing with me. The more I'm reading, I keep on realizing that oh my God, I don't know nothing. I don't know anything. What is wrong? And the desire to read more, the desire to know more about certain situations, the desire to understand how this world works. That is there. So the student in me, I kind of like that the student in me is alive and it's kicking and it's continuously hungry and curious for other things.
Makes sense. And what you just told about your own evolution in terms of empathy, I'm sure many a times you might have heard people say to you, "Oh, you are so courageous, Dr. Medusa." Of course, you are courageous. Yet it is more than just courage that propels one to speak up. even if there are consequences. I have been a student of life and researcher in my own way to understand human nature. And what I found is that it all boils down to one simple factor. You either can look the other way when injustice is happening and live with it, or you cannot. And if you cannot look away and get affected by other suffering and injustices, then you do not have a choice. Speaking out is as essential as breathing out. So, what's your thought on this?
As far as courage is concerned, I think this is the bare minimum that I'm doing. I think that, but see, it's always context, because right now the context is such that what I am doing appears courageous. Also, it appears courageous because it's on the internet. There are people who are on ground taking actual lathis, taking actual incarceration by the police, taking actual danger to their lives, to their families' lives, to their property, actual, like, literal physical people doing that right now, and that's not visible.
Yeah.
Because it's not being shown and it's not out there. And that's why me saying something on the internet appears courageous, because it is visible. So visibility is also something that is making my voice heard, and that's the way of the world, and it's very unfair, and I don't think that even should exist. What was your question? I forgot. I went on a tangent and I lost the thread.
My question was, I feel that some people can look at injustice and look away and then live their lives, and then others cannot.
Yeah.
And those who cannot have no other choice but to do whatever they can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's true, because when people say you're so brave, you're so courageous, you're not fearless, absolutely not. I am not fearless at all. I'm very scared, and I'm very scared about persecution. My parents, getting hurt, my home getting bulldozed. All of those things are still there, but I still do this because that's the thing. If I don't, then it will be an extremely difficult way for me to live, because like I said, it started because of a mental health crisis of what do I have? Why do I get this privilege of living and surviving comfortably, and why do these people don't?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would absolutely agree that there is a section of people who just cannot stay silent. It's not in our blood. It's not in our upbringing. Actually, it's also a kind of privilege.
Yes.
To be able to, I have been heard throughout my life when I have talked about something in my family, in my immediate surroundings. I have been heard. I have grown up in a world where my complaints have been heard. So yeah, I'm privileged like that. And there are people who think that it is not going to work because they have not had that privilege ever in how they have grown up.
True. Yeah, we are a product of all the factors, right? And what you just said has bugged me a lot for a long time. It's just a genetic lottery that you're born in a educated family and you're not really living in the slums, right? Life would have taken a very different trajectory if that was the case. So yeah. But as we grow old, like from your teens to 20s to 30s, understanding our own privileges and biases, and then getting the nuance of it and understanding what's been going around the world and how everything is interconnected is evolving. So what I really admire is how you have embraced the labels thrown at you, like the powerful Medusa, and you have also taken up Dr. Medusa, assuming using the doctor before Medusa was an intentional move, because very often in our society, women with doctorates are not called doctor, while men with doctorates are very easily called doctors.
Yep.
Yep.
It was deliberate, because I was Miss Medusa before and I'm very, very particular about these things, because I did not have a PhD at that point of time. I was studying, but then I got a job, and because of the job, it took a backseat. The PhD took a backseat, and then of course COVID happened, and I realized that I do right now have the time where I could sit down and do my thesis, because all my groundwork was done. So I did that, and uske time pe, and when I did get my PhD in 2022 actually, so I started creating in 2020 in the middle of COVID, and then by 2022 when I had my PhD, I actually changed my username from Miss Medusa to Dr. Medusa. So it is very deliberate, and considering the fact that degrees in our country are so hidden, and you have to go to courts to figure out the degrees of certain people, and yet those degrees are still protected by these courts, and nobody's like, no, you can't see this degree and so on and so forth. Then you have to file RTIs, and you have to change laws to protect how some people are utterly uneducated and have made up fake degrees. So I was like, my degree is just out there. You can just go and check. You can find my thesis also. Everything you can read, it's all out in the open. So I wanted to make a statement. So yes, the doctor is very, very deliberate, and even the Medusa is also very deliberate.
As you mentioned, your childhood and your parents and everything shapes you. So
Mhm.
I'm sure you must have owned your accomplishment with pride. And
Yes.
so many women around us do not get to do that. Even if they have a doctorate, they would shy away. And I have seen that in panel discussions that a woman with a PhD would not be called a doctor something. Uh,
Yeah.
and with a PhD would. So when I first saw you embracing it, as like, wow, respect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Words do have power. Language is deeply political, and it always frustrates me to find how most derogatory slurs are abusing women. Like two men are fighting, and all you hear in the verbal abuse is abusing women.
Yes.
Have you ever wondered about it and got pestered? Why it continues?
Yeah, I am a linguist, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like in my wheelhouse to think about these things.
Therefore,
And
the question to you, I really want to understand.
it's because we have a very patriarchal society, and patriarchal society mein women are seen as property. After all, what is the absolute most humiliating thing for a person is for the person to become a pauper, because not only we are a patriarchy, we are also a capitalist society. So if a person has, when does a person have no value, no social capital, is when the person does not have any capital. And since women are a part of that capital, so it is extremely easy. And also in a patriarchy, honor is attached to a woman. A
Hmm.
family's honor is attached to the woman. The woman is the thekedar of the entire family's respect and sanskriti, sometimes even the entire country's sanskriti, because culture. So because the woman is the thekedar of all of these things, that's why an insult to the woman is an insult indirectly to the man. So you are not insulting the man directly, but you are insulting the woman. All societies which are patriarchal in nature will have abuses and slurs
Hmm.
centered around women, because women are the property. And when I take away your property, when I take away your adhikar over that property, your right over that property, I have insulted you. You have ultimately lost the fight with, or lost the battle with me. That's the reason why all our slurs are around women, because women को ही तो ठेकेदार बना के रखा है हम लोगों ने कल्चर और संस्कृति का. उनकी बेइज्जती कर दो तो तुम्हारी बेइज्जती हो गई.
Hmm. And yeah, like that was my understanding too. I was very keen to hear your linguistic take on the quality of those slurs as well, without naming them, right? Like they're mostly about sexually abusing women. And again, when you talk about patriarchy, it's about your mother and your sister, and I don't know, maybe they have something on daughter too. I haven't heard, but
Yeah, daughters भी है.
acha.
Yeah.
So if I say whatever I say to another man, it would not be as derogatory from a language point of view as much as I would say something really mean and derogatory about a women in their life. Like,
Hmm.
how does that work?
पहली बात तो है कि the thing that you said कि usually the abuses involve a sexual remark or a form of sexual violence. That's because sex in a patriarchal setup, sex is about power, and it's not just about sex. So if I am able to subdue you in a sexual relationship, in a sexual nature, then I have power over you. So of course I will have more power over you if I also not just subdue you, but the women that you own. If I take away your property, if I abuse those people as well, those women as well who are in a direct relationship to you, then I am more powerful than you are. So that's the reason why sex is involved in these slurs. In fact, in cultures where there are abusive words for fathers and brothers, it also involves sex, because after all, sex is about power, and it is about domination and having an up over someone else.
Yeah.
That's the angle that comes in. So
Yeah.
patriarchy, and again, after all, we boil
Equation
it
of power,
down.
right? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The idea who is powerful over the other, who has
Right.
more power.
I have found, again, that's my personal belief, is you know, people who lack any vocabulary or any tark, when you're out of all dialogues or all kind of And what to say when someone is out of arguments is
Any
when
logic, any argument, any semblance of
semblance of
reason.
reason is when people go down the abusing others or slurring.
The thing is, you know what? It in fact it has been researched as well that using abusive language it also is very cathartic, and it also gives a very powerful release of emotions. For example, मेरी language बहुत खराब है, मतलब in real life. It is something which I'm trying to correct because of the extremely patriarchal nature of these slurs and these abuses. I'm trying. In fact, I don't know if you've seen this or not. There is an account. There is a person who invites people to submit abuses which do not have mothers and sisters and any women, and which in fact target men, and which do not have a sexual nature. So it is so funny, and people come up with such beautiful things. Somebody came up with like phaphoond, like on 3 din purane mithai ke upar ka phaphoond or something like that. It was so hilarious, and it's so funny, and I'm like this is way more
This is so creative, right?
It was way more creative. And somebody was like, diarrhea head. I'm like, that is amazing. Diarrhea head? That is so good. So yeah, I do like a creative gali. See, it's way of expressing our anger, and sometimes it's very cathartic. The release is good, and it is absolutely what you said is very correct. Sometimes when you are absolutely lost of logic and reason, then you just want to give gali. However, I have also discovered that there are a certain group of people in my years, in my journey of creating, especially creating anti-establishment content and keeping myself out there, putting myself out there. There is an entire group of people who is not swayed by reason and logic. They do not care what logic you are giving. They do not care what reason you have. They have this manufactured offense. They have a manufactured sense of being better than you because they belong to a certain community, or because they belong to a certain religion, because they support a particular political party. They have a manufactured sense of self, and this is what prevents them from listening to any reason, any logic. You throw any data on their face, they will not care about it.
Yeah.
They will manipulate this data, and to them there is no point in conversing with them with logic, and sometimes you just need to call them a slur and move on. And I do like a phaphoond head or a diarrhea head kind of a slur. So yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah. And I'm sure like what you do is there are so many people who do not understand nuances, or sometimes the satire just hits and they open up. Something opens up in them. I'm sure you are talking to so many other people who don't really understand the gravity of a situation, etc., rather than talking to those who do not want to wake up. I'm sure your energies are not diverted towards that. And now that you're talking about that account, I don't know of that. One of my friend, she was crowdsourcing all the non-sexual or slurs, and some very interesting ones come out. Aadmi ho ke pajama ho, thali ke pant. So many interesting ones.
There's one here in UP, and my husband also uses that. Ki, can I say that? Like, are you a donkey's fart?
Okay, that's good.
What does that even mean? Like, why? It was so funny. We were arguing, and then he's a funny person. He's a naturally very funny person, and he uses a number of these things. And sometimes when we are just arguing, and it's just like it becomes a laughter fest at the end, because
the argument goes away.
It goes away because what even is that? Yeah. Another one is kaddu. So he just uses kaddu.
So coming back to your work, is your satire mostly a reaction to what is happening around, or is it sometimes a measured response too?
See, the thing is, I don't really think about my work. I don't even think of it as work. I just think of it as a privileged person just reacting to things sometimes. So yeah, maybe just a reaction. Sometimes I think it is a measured response. For example, I sometimes make these appeal videos. I have made appeal videos to the Prime Minister, to the President. I think when I make these appeal videos, this is a more of a measured response. While when I'm making my other videos, then I think it's reaction to what is happening around me, because I don't make videos every single day. I'm not a slave to the algorithm. So that's my thing. For example, I'm active now, but before this, I have been inactive for the first 5 months of this year. I don't make videos to add to the noise. If I think that there is something important which is going on, and there are enough people talking about it,
Hmm.
then I don't really think कि मेरे को जरूरी है कि मैं भी बोलूं उस चीज पे या फिर मैं भी एडिशन करूं. कोई जरूरत नहीं लगती मुझको. There are enough people in this country, there are enough people in this world who are already doing that. However, मुझे कभी कभी लगता है कि for example, when the legacy media or when mainstream media is actively trying to hide something, actively trying to create an alternative discourse, actively trying to create, sorry, not an alternative discourse, because that becomes a mainstream discourse
Yeah.
if our media is creating it. So if there is something which they are pushing, a propaganda which they are pushing very actively, because right now the fourth pillar is completely dead. It's completely like it's done. It's gone. It's निस्तनाबूद जिसको बोलते हैं वो हो चुका है हमारे देश में. Media तो it's completely gone. So having said that, because of that reason, when the existing media, which is completely paid for, when that tries to push up certain narrative, इनिशियली ऑल्सो जब मेरी शुरुआत हुई थी मेरे वीडियोस बनाने की, तब भी मुझको सिर्फ इसलिए मैं वीडियो बनाती थी क्योंकि अगर मीडिया एक लाइन बोल रही है, एक लाइन पकड़ी हुई है, तो मुझे एक ऑल्टरनेटिव डिस्कोर्स भी क्रिएट करना था. बिकॉज आई वांटेड audiences, I wanted the people of this country to realize, to know that ये भी exist करता है.
True.
Right? So that's when that's how I started, and I think I continue doing that. तो अगर मुझे अभी लगता है कि there is something which the media is not covering, for example, the CJP protests were not being covered by the media at all. और जब भी वो आते भी अगर थे तो वो एक पर्टिकुलर नैरेटिव पुश करने की कोशिश करते थे. तो आई वाज लाइक कि नहीं, अभी जरूरी है. सो आई वाज मेकिंग वीडियोस. आई हैव बीन मेकिंग वीडियोस फॉर द पास्ट 1.5 months very actively. There are issues in the country which are not being covered at all. For example, right now there is a huge protest going on in the केन बेतवा project, river dam project को लेकर. वहां पर जो आदिवासी लोग हैं वो पानी में बैठ कर जल सत्याग्रह कर रहे हैं, चिताओं पर लेटे हुए हैं, फांसी पर लटक के वो सिंबॉलिक एक प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं. It has been going on for the past 2 months, and I'm 100% sure if you ask a layman on the street, that person will not know that something as big as that is happening in our country. ठीक है, 40,000 करोड़ का प्रोजेक्ट है वो, 40,000 करोड़ का डैम प्रोजेक्ट है, and it is going to be extremely dangerous for the people who are living there. These people's lands have been acquired खाली papers पे अंगूठा ले लेकर. Their lands have been illegally acquired by the government and by the other people who are involved there. There is a massive protests in Haryana going on right now because for water rights के लिए वहां पर चल रहा है. गुजरात में farmers का protest चल रहा है. All of these things are happening, and yet I'm 100% sure आप layman से पूछोगे तो उसको नहीं पता रहेगा. My husband right now, he's not apolitical, but he does not, is not up to date with the news. Even he probably doesn't know that there are these protests going on in the
totally.
in the
Vizag, look
so
at
yes,
Vizag.
वाइजैक में हो रहा है. वाइजैक में इतना बड़ा एक entire city is coming out because I think it's 9,000 acre. That's the
Yeah.
that's the
That's
size.
the size. Even in Nicobar,
that
right?
city.
Like for past 2 years, the Adivasis were protesting until the
Yep,
LOP
yep.
went there, and there was little bit of noise.
निकोबार में तो और भी ज्यादा आसान होगा इन लोग के लिए ना, because निकोबार में the people who are going to be extremely affected and possibly wiped out, because that's what international environmental tribunals have said, that this will be akin to genocide, because the Chompen community, the Chompen tribe is hardly 300 to 400 people. All of them are going to be killed because of the Great Nicobar project. वो तो पहले 80,000 crore का था, now it is 92,000 crore project, and you just want to build container yards. And for container yards, you are destroying an entire ecosystem. You are destroying the animals. You're destroying the livelihood of these people. 300 लोग क्या 300 लोग नहीं होते, उनकी जान नहीं होती, उनकी जान की कीमत नहीं है, just because they are 300.
Yeah.
So all of these things are going on, and I kind of think that is what I have to talk about. And now that I think of it, my work is both reactionary and sometimes a measured response. I don't really know which is which at what point of time, but yeah, I think it's both.
Yeah. And you very easily find brilliant balance between satirical commentary and education. Your videos has the element of education in it.
Yeah.
So it's not always a rant.
ये वो अंदर का टीचर जाता ही नहीं है because the first videos I started with, or my character at that point of time, the neighborhood English teacher. That's who I was. I was
Yeah.
a neighborhood teacher, and because I know my subject, I loved my subject, and
Mm.
I thought that I would do a bit of both, and it was a bit of कहीं ना कहीं पे self preservation का तो था ही, because I was like, if I am going to say things directly, then I don't know what is going to happen. Times are not so good, because Hathras had happened, in fact, at that point of time. And Siddiq Kappan and multiple journalists were arrested for just going there to report. And Siddiq Kappan, in fact, stayed inside for like more than 2 years, I think. All of these things were happening. So I was like, thoda sa self-preservation to zaruri hai. The teacher inside is always there. It's there. So I always have this tendency. Sometimes it does get pedantic, but yeah.
Yeah. No, but I think, yeah, you do the job brilliantly.
Thank you.
And since we are talking about the teacher in you, language is such an important piece of your work. And also, like our everyday life, language has a deep relation to the sense of belonging.
Yeah.
In a country like India, one language is enriches by the other, and its fluidity is the beauty. Yet, we have seen very often how language can be weaponized.
Mhm.
So, you as a linguist, what would be your suggestion for those who do not wish to fall for it unknowingly? There are people who willingly doing it, and they're different ball game. We are not talking about them, but there could be people who are just susceptible to unnecessary pride being pushed into the narrative and just carried away by this love for their language, and hence become a bit of separatist or start othering others out. What would be your suggestion? How could they preserve themselves and their humanity?
I think that this is more of a societal and institutional responsibility rather than individual responsibility, because the individual does have a very, very strong relationship with the language, because it is not just a means of communication for them, it is a means of their expression. And it is not only a means of their expression, it is a means of their interaction with the world around them. So language is definitely extremely important to our understanding of ourselves, our understanding of our identities. It is a part of our identities. It's a huge part of our identities. And that is the reason why, like you said, it is very easy for elements to weaponize it. And that is why the responsibility to not let it be weaponized is of more of an institutional responsibility and more of a societal responsibility rather than an individual responsibility. An individual max to max they can do is keeping themselves educated, keeping themselves aware that things like this happen. But like we said, education and awareness are all associated with privilege. Sometimes they just don't have the time. They don't have the time to be aware or know that there are other countries, or there are other languages which are equally cultured, equally, in fact all languages in this world, they have a certain history, they have a culture associated with them, they have music, they have stories, they have all of this their entire universe associated with them. That's how languages evolve. Languages have all of this information inside them. So sometimes individually there will be people who don't have the time. For example, somebody who is जो दिन की दिहाड़ी कर रहा है, उसको इस बात की फुर्सत नहीं है सोचने के लिए कि उसकी भाषा में बदलाव आ रहा है या उसकी भाषा का एक कल्चरल वेपनाइजेशन हो रहा है या फिर कॉलोनाइजेशन हो रहा है, उसको समय नहीं है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, I work with languages which are getting which are endangered languages, which are people who are using those languages are either dying, or the communities are shrinking, or people are just abandoning these languages. Why? Because there is no employability in these languages. There is no reason why a person would be using that language if there are no opportunities available in that language, right? So it's not just a matter of individual pride. That's why I say it is very important. It is institutional responsibility and it's societal responsibility to keep languages alive, to make people understand that languages are beautiful. Languages should be a way of discovering other cultures instead of weaponizing it and saying that I am proud of this, or this is mine, and everybody should be learning this language. No, So it is more of an institutional responsibility rather than an individual one.
Yeah.
For example, let's say the government wants to propagate Hindi or Hindi as a language, but there are certain factions in our country, certain states in our country who actively oppose the imposition of Hindi. However, if you really wanted to propagate Hindi as a language, you would create opportunities. You would create opportunities for people who want to study that language. You would create opportunities for people who have already studied that language, especially if that language is not your mother tongue. If you create these opportunities, why won't somebody want to learn it? For example, right now in Assam, there is this huge movement going on to learn Japanese. In my extremely small town, I saw a school for Japanese.
Wow.
So why? Because Japan is offering scholarships. Japan is offering fellowships. Japan is offering opportunities for students who know Japanese to go there and study to improve their lives. So students in Assam who do not have the privilege to learn English, who do not have the privilege to go to an English medium school, are actually going to these Japanese schools and studying there. My little small town has a Japanese school. I'm like, what? It is a responsibility of the institution to create these opportunities, and the society is going to take it up. It's like when we talk about rights, that it's not a pie कि उसमें से एक पीस कोई ले लेगा तो हम किसी और के लिए कम हो
Right.
जाएगा. भाषा is like that. भाषा कोई एक पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी बोलने लग जाएगी तो ऐसा नहीं है आपके लिए कम हो जाएगा. You also have every single opportunity to learn that, and if you learn another language, your life is going to be enriched. Your mind is going to be exposed to this entirely new culture, entirely new way of thinking things. And I think it's the responsibility of a society, it's the responsibility of the institutions and the authorities which make a society to make this available to the people and not just an individual.
Fair point. Languages, they just absorb things and they evolve. Languages are not dead. किसी और से कुछ लेकर के एक भाषा समृद्धि होती है, उसमें से कुछ घटता नहीं है. And that is the reason the older the language, there would be borrowed word and people travel.
There is just literally a branch of linguistics known as historical linguistics, where historical linguists trace each and every sound that is there in the language and trace it back, and people have been able to map the way people have migrated across continents and reached another continent, and what that language looks like now and what it looked like before, where it has come from, where it picked up words, where it picked up sounds, where it picked up inflections. Oh, it's just mind blowing how a language has this entire history. And that's the reason why, as a linguist, it's extremely sad when languages die, because it's an entire history getting obliterated, losing an entire culture. And that's why I like working with endangered languages and trying to preserve them and document them and working towards their revitalization.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, because when it comes to language, I get this, the teacher in me gets activated and I just go
Oh,
on.
it's fascinating. And one of the things, again, like a double-edged sword, some of the thing, just like internet, that's the thing with English language, right? It has just opened doors of opportunities, brought the people together. At the same point of time, it has kind of eaten up in every other language on the planet. Every 30 miles or 100 miles, there are this colloquial intonations that come in, and all of them are slowly getting evaporated. Even in Hindi, it's not a right word, monolithic, but maybe something like that. Like everyone should speak like this all over the place. And English has taken a good share of those languages. So is what I have seen happening in Hindi as well. Do you concur? There is no way around it. We cannot reverse the wheel, but it's just sad to see some of those things just getting evaporated, because
that's where we come in. That's what as linguists we come in, that we look at endangered languages. We have documented endangered languages. Linguists around the world are actually doing that right now. We are documenting it. That's why I keep saying that it is not an individual responsibility. It's not an individual's fault. In the same way, it's not a language's fault. So English is not the one which is gobbling up all of these languages. It is the capitalistic nature of our world, of our societies right now, that we are not able to preserve what is our own. For example, because language encodes or preserves ways of life. A lot of our ways of life is, it revolves around, or it consists of things that we do in everyday life, how we create things. For example, how we create the clothes that we wear, how we create the food that we eat, how we construct something, how we play something, a musical instrument, so on and so forth. When the market comes into play, when it's a market heavy culture, when your clothes are mass produced, when the instruments are mass produced, when your food is mass produced, and when these means of production are being overtaken by organizations and MNCs and companies, your ways of living are slowly dying away. And with your ways of living is the language that describes that way of living. Okay? For example, multiple food items have disappeared from our kitchens, from multiple food items, multiple utensils have disappeared. There were utensils, for example, मेरे time पे मेरे यहाँ पे हमारे यहाँ पे वो जो असम में or any other rice heavy culture, they have a round bamboo thing जिससे ऐसे ऐसे करके मम्मी वो किया करती थी, और एक ऐसे होती थी जिसमें छेद छेद होता था, छलनी नहीं, बट समथिंग एल्स, इट्स कॉल्ड, हम लोग सालोनी बोलते हैं, हम लोग सालोनी ही बोलते हैं उसको, पर वो बड़ा होता है, ठीक है, not the smaller one. That I couldn't find. I wanted to have one of those things at my place. I couldn't find that when I went home this time. I couldn't find that in a market. But when I was young, that there would be an entire वो Sunday की market लगती थी, or there would be people who have constructed these things out with their own hands. ताम्र के जो plates होते थे, brass plates that we have, they used to have these fine carvings inside. I could find the tam plates this time, but I could not find one which had these carvings. There are people who made them. Art forms are getting lost.
Yes.
And so when we are looking at the loss of a language, we also need to see all of these different things. All of these things are connected. Our world is entirely connected. And why are they getting lost? It's because of this market heavy, this capitalism heavy world that we live in, where everything is being mass produced for the sake of convenience, and also the convenience of a very few people. A very thin class is kind of dictating how everyone else is living, how everyone else lives. And by the time it trickles down, the ways of living, with the ways you are living, are lost, and there is no profitability in continuing to live the way you do. For example, now I think a lot of slow living is coming back. There are like a number of slow resorts where you go, and where nothing is like very fast, and you just stay there. There is no internet. A lot of couples are also there on the internet, at least on Indian Instagram, where they are growing their own food, living in a farmhouse kind of a place where they own the land, and they're producing mustard oil also, and peppers also, and cinnamon bark also. All of these things. So slow living is kind of coming back. But when you actually think about it, that is also a very, very privileged and capitalistic push, no? Because owning land in this economy, I don't think I can. So if you are owning land, if you do have land, so all of these things are connected. So when the market came in with the entrance of capitalism, with the entrance of this one language, which kind of represents the major
colonial mindset,
the colonial mindset, the main capitalist forces in the world, right? When this is the language which represents that, so power is automatically associated with that. And when that comes in, when the market comes in and captures everything, you have to understand that it will capture your language as well.
Yeah. And I find it fascinating how so many people do not understand that there's an aspiration and feel that they are closer to a billionaire, but they do not recognize that there are 2 salaries away from being, hand to mouth. I don't know how this has been sold, but it has been sold at a massive level.
You know what? I used to think that this is an America problem, because in America, they sell this dream, no? The American dream. That's the American dream, that if you work hard enough, you can be rich enough, right? Which is not the case. And for all of these years, because it's so easy to get a loan in the US and own a house, because you take a loan, you mortgage, you work your entire life, and then you pay off your student loan. Probably you try and pay off your student loans, and if you do not work, you are dead. All of these things are there in the US. मुझे लगता था कि ये अमेरिका प्रॉब्लम है.
No.
But no, I'm slowly seeing. Just a couple of days ago, when our honorable prime minister, he went to Indonesia and I think 2 more other countries. He had gone on a 3-country tour. I had made a reel where I said ki just look out for all the projects, etc., that Adani will get now in all of these countries. Just look out for the projects that he will be getting. And there were multiple comments कि तू क्यों जल रही है, तू भी मेहनत कर, तू भी अदानी बन. I was like, bro, do you even realize he's the richest man in the world? He was the richest man in the world, and then of course Hindenburg happened, and then he slipped down to 39th. But yet, do you understand the difference between you and him? You are defending him. Oh my God. And I was flabbergasted. You realize this is the time when you cannot reason with this person, and you only have to resort to an abuse or a slur, because there is no way this person is going to understand. And I kind of tried using, at one point of time, I tried using the difference between 1 million seconds and 1 billion seconds. To make them understand the difference between 1 million and 1 billion, कि भाई तेरे पास 1 million हो सकता है कभी आ जाए, लेकिन तेरे पास कभी भी 1 billion नहीं आएगा, तेरी सैलरी से तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं आएगा. Not even if you have like a very successful business, you are not going to be a billionaire until and unless you steal people's labor, you steal people's tax money. Being a billionaire is not ethical. It's not. There's no ethical way when you can become a billionaire. And people don't understand that, and it is now becoming prevalent in India also, because of this discourse कि राष्ट्रहित में आप ये कर रहे हैं, और ये this is an Indian company and this is an Indian businessman and we should be proud of this Indian businessman. So you have hitched your wagon to this Indian businessman who
would equally be bad.
Who's taking your money, bro?
Totally.
All the tax money that is having, it's going. Where is it going? It's like ₹1 का जो एकड़ जमीन दिया गया है, तुमको क्या लगता है? तुम खरीद लेगा? तुमको दे देगा कोई? You want to start a business? Will you be able to get that one acre, ₹1 में 1 एकड़ वाला जमीन? Will you be able to get it? No.
Or the bank loan that will be waived off later.
महाराष्ट्र में फार्मर्स 10,000 के लोन के लिए सुसाइड कर देते हैं. 10,000 के लोन के लिए.
There's a massive delusion and disassociation that नहीं गरीब लोगों से तो हम बहुत दूर हैं, just because I have purchased a car, I'm closer to a billionaire, which is absolutely delusional, and this is a global phenomena. I have seen that playing out everywhere. As a thought experiment, it just fascinates me, frustrates me in equal measures. And now, since we've touched on capitalism, one of the things I was meaning to ask you is, as 90s kids, we have seen how the idea of socialism has slowly faded away from people's imagination and vocabulary. And it has far-fetched consequences. There's less questioning. There is this whole thing we just spoken about, how there's a mass hypnotism or delusion that's going on. How do you see the shift? Have you seen some inflection points? And more importantly, how do you see it playing out at universities now? Like, is there some kind of reckoning up at the new generation kids waking up to the ills of capitalism? Like, socialism is all about equality. How can it be questioned, right? But I have seen that faded away from people's imagination and vocabulary in last 20 years massively.
Yeah. I think it is like you said, like the American dream, there is also an Indian middle class dream. कि हाँ, middle class dream में क्या है? घर, गाड़ी, पैसा. घर, गाड़ी, नौकरी, सरकारी नौकरी. तो वो जो dream जो sell हुआ है, and this entire generations of people working towards that dream, or working their entire lives actually towards that dream. So वही तो है कि घर हो, एक गाड़ी हो, और छुट्टी मिल जाए बीच बीच में कहीं कहीं घूमने जाने के लिए, परिवार है, माँ बाप, बच्चे हैं, बस वही उतना ही एस्पिरेशन जो खत्म हुई है हमारी, और एस्पिरेशन में भी आप, like I said, I used to think that patriarchy is the root of all evil, but then I read and I realized that is no, it's capitalism is the root of all evil. मार्केट हैवी, जब भी जैसे ही आपकी सोसाइटी मार्केट हैवी हो जाती है ना, तो वो सारा सप्लाई डिमांड वाला एंगल आ जाता है, एंड देन एवरीथिंग बिकम्स अ कमोडिटी. इवन एवरी सिंगल ह्यूमन बीइंग इटसेल्फ, हम लोग आज के डेट में स्पेशली विद द सोशल मीडिया एंड विद इंस्टाग्राम, I don't remember which movie this is a dialogue of. If something is free, then you are the product.
Oh, yeah.
So Instagram is free. You're free to create an account. You're free to upload. Everything is there. You are the product because you need it to be manipulated. You need to be, your data needs to be collected. How you see something, what is the item that you are seeing? What is the item that you are spending time on? Which things are your eyes seeing and stopping the scroll? All of that is being calculated, and all of that is being sold. All of that is being sold to companies, and those companies in turn are selling you their products.
Yeah.
So जब जैसे ही ये एंट्री हुई ना, उसकी वजह से थोड़ा सा, however, like you said that the internet is a double-edged sword. So right now, for example, years and years of propaganda, which was international propaganda, actually international propaganda perpetrated by Israel, it has been dismantled by
Oh,
social
yes.
media itself. Social media का मतलब इतने सालों का propaganda, and younger children, younger kids, the Gen Z population across the world have exposed how it is propaganda, have exposed, they have very successfully held the boycott. The BDS movement has been extremely successful. Companies, major companies like Starbucks and McDonald's, etc., have reported losses for the first time in their histories. So it's like a double-edged sword. So yes, I do see a lot of people starting to talk about socialism, because they don't look at themselves as left or as leftists, because they don't know what being a leftist is or what being a socialist is.
Yeah.
But they look at Zoran Mamdani and they see the work that he's doing. They see
That's
see the
socialism 101.
language. They see the language that he is using. They see the very confident acceptance of the label of democratic socialist
Yeah.
that he is using. And it's not just the American population. I have also seen our Indian Gen Z also. We as a country, we are beginning to see multiple protests at the same time in multiple states. We are beginning to see more conversations around equality, more conversations around reservation and positive and affirmative action. We
Yeah.
are actually beginning to see, for example, I do not think that the Congress party has spoken about caste as much as they have since Rahul Gandhi has talked about caste census, and since Rahul Gandhi has started talking about equality and representation.
Yeah.
So all of these things are happening, and I would like to think that we are, making that climb back up to socialism, because this has been shown, this has been seen in research across times, that the right wing does get powerful at one point of time and then it starts going down. I
It's
would
a
like to
cycle,
think that-
right? Yeah.
yeah, it happens as a 30-year cycle. I think we are in the middle of the 30-year cycle right now. I do see more and more people start talking about socialism and start talking about Marxism, socialism, communism. I know that many people do not know the difference between these three as well. But then there is conversation around it. The internet itself is giving us space to have conversation around it. There are more people reading. There are actual accounts which I've seen which have reading lists, and those are very beneficial to me as well. Reading lists of what to read if you want to understand something, if you want to understand socialism, if you want to understand how this world works. Like I said, the more you read, the more you realize that you don't know shit. So yeah.
So maybe we will live long enough to see the end of the tunnel, and वो सुबह कभी तो आएगी.
Hope. Yeah, there is this line, no, Faiz ka, लंबी है वो गम की शाम मगर शाम ही तो है. So there was somebody like, फैज भाई कितनी लंबी है और ये शाम. It reminds me of that, फैज भाई हम कब देखेंगे फैज भाई. So yeah, I don't know whether we'll see it or not, but let's hope that we do. Yes.
Yeah, totally. And one of the things that we spoke about, you said patriarchy is like the pinnacle of all problems, and then you realize capitalism is. I was in conversation with someone recently, and we kind of agreed that it's the unholy trinity of patriarchy, capitalism, and organized religion.
Mm.
When all these three come together, when if you make a pie chart, the common denominator are the ones who are kind of ruling in the ruling class. You mentioned one thing: a lot of people do not understand the difference between, let's say, socialism, communism. But the end of the day, these are also labels and isms. But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
start with something, and you have to understand something to then take away all the myths and the problems that it has. So you start by learning first.
Like you said, you're very correct when you said that कि ये सारे तो isms होते हैं. What in fact for my videos also, the words that I use or the issues which I choose to champion, I have always thought of the only standard or the only मापदंड जिसको बोलते हैं, which I have maintained in my videos, is that I always think uh, which side am I on and why am I on that side? Am I on the side of the community that is being oppressed? Am I on the side of the people that is being oppressed? And if that is the only question that I need to answer, if the answer is yes, I am talking for the people who are oppressed, I am fine. It doesn't matter what ism that falls under. If I'm saying yes,
Yes.
chalega.
Yes. Totally. And yeah, that's been my mapdand as well. From an academic perspective, people have time, go learn about whatever, but do not get, just entangled into this and to that, because there's just so
Yeah.
much need that needs to be done. So that's a very good standard. And the oppressor and oppressed. And the second is like, whatever you're doing. So if you're in policy making or doing anything, like if you have an agency, are you thinking about the last man standing?
Yes.
And it's not very difficult. These are like not very difficult parameters.
These are not very difficult concepts. They absolutely not. As a teacher, also, I always have to think about the weakest student in the classroom.
Yeah.
I cannot move on from a particular topic until every single student has understood, until the weakest student in the classroom has understood.
Exactly. And the same goes with everything else, right? Like when you spoke about making sure that the languages are very much part of our everyday life is an institutional responsibility.
Yeah.
Rather than individual. And that's such a brilliant point, because we are also at a juncture when a lot of people have given up hope from the institution, from government. So many things will just very quickly come down at individuals. Like AQI is 400 plus, we will not hold government accountable. Let's do our bit.
It's an actual conspiracy, because see, that's what happens in capitalism, because the profit margin is everything, and anything which harms the profit margin cannot be. It's a no, it's a taboo concept. So put everything on the individual, like billions and billions of dollars. 90%, 99% of the world's pollution is being caused by 100 companies.
Yeah.
100 billions and billions of tons of waste is being thrown into the oceans. And not just that, it is so mind-boggling when you actually get into the environmental violence that these companies are causing. You just have to look. Right now it is happening with the data centers across the country,
The
across the world,
displacement,
right?
The people's life being affected for generations.
America sends shiploads of its waste, literal waste, to countries like Vietnam, countries like Philippines, countries like India, countries like Bangladesh. Where is that going? Into our land. We are digging up our land in order to dump all of this waste that America is sending by the ships.
Yeah.
And then the first world countries are responsible. They buy carbon credits and they're fine. Legally they're fine, technically they're fine. And people who are climate conscious, what are we doing? We are using paper straws, we are using metal straws, we are switching off the lights when we are leaving, we are worrying about the AC, we are worrying about our carbon footprint. It is ridiculous. It's like what Greta Thunberg was celebrated across the world as long as she was doing environmental wala thingy. The moment she made the connection between capitalism and like how capitalism is what is affecting our environments, moment she made the connection, she became this huge enemy of the state.
Yeah. I think it's gonna take a people's movement across countries, and there will be a wave, and that's the only way we can reclaim our lands and our lives. Yeah. Time will tell. And chronicling our times is a responsibility, right? Whether someone is writing, whether someone is sharing something, it is a huge responsibility. You are doing that among many others on the internet in using different ways and means on social media. However, I do believe that takes a toll on one's life. Have you built the inner and outer reservoir of resilience and self care to be able to do that in the long run? Or are you still learning? Like, where are you at?
I think I'm still learning. It's a process because every day the challenges are different. In the first 2 years, a lot of trolling was happening, and then because a lot of trolling happened because of the way I look, because of the way I talk, majorly look actually, because that's again patriarchy. तो सबसे ज़्यादा हमको लगता है कि सबसे ज़्यादा easy क्या चीज़ है, किसी औरत को भी उसके appearance और looks के ऊपर comment करना, because that is what patriarchy has told you is how your worth is determined in a society, in a patriarchal society, is how you look. So you need to maintain yourself, and so on and so forth. You need to look a certain way. You need to have a certain presentability, or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I don't follow these rules. कभी भी नहीं करा. These trollings did not touch me at all, because I have always been very comfortable and very confident about how I look. I do not give like two flying rats behinds about how I look like.
I like the creativity of
Yeah, I don't do that. Like I said, I like a creative insult. So if somebody would insult me creatively, I would really like that. I have screenshots in my old phone of the initial stuff that they used to tell me, and then it became just like repetitive and very clichetic. And all the other kinds of violence, for example, rape threats and acid attack threats, etc. Those are there. Those are like a part of a woman on the internet's life. However, things became worse after the FIR happened, and that was a might of the state coming after me. So that is when I realized that I really don't have any power, and it was community, it was family, and a lot of other things which saved me and cushioned me at that point of time. So yeah, I do have a system. I do have a network of people who are my safe place, and I very actively use them. I also have never shied away from therapy, never shied away from speaking to a professional, and I've spoken about this in a number of other interviews as well. And I think that is extremely important, because this whole idea of strength, or a woman being amazing because she's strong, that idea is propagated in our society to such an extent that women shy away from asking for help when they need it. I don't think that is healthy. I do ask for help when I need it, although I have the side effects of this superwoman syndrome are always there. I've seen my mother, who's a superwoman, who does everything herself, who does everything alone, and I kind of grew up thinking that is how I am supposed to be. And women are praised a lot. It's like weaponized praise.
Oh yes.
When we do all of these things, we do all of the things alone, and नहीं कोई जरूरत नहीं है, मैं कर लूंगी, कोई तक दिक्कत नहीं है, मैं कर लूंगी. अरे मेरी मम्मी पता है 40 लोगों का खाना अकेले बनाती थी. नहीं बनाना चाहिए.
क्यों बनाती
नहीं
थी?
बनाना चाहिए. किसी पे भी ये प्रेशर नहीं होना चाहिए.
Right.
तो ये जो weaponized praise जो है, that is there. So I do recognize that, and I have never shied away from asking for help, even mental health wala help. So I do have a network, and again, it's a learning process. I do have coping mechanisms. खुद develop हो ही जाते हैं. 40 साल की उम्र हो गई है, तो you develop these coping mechanisms throughout your life. So I have used all of these things. I still do have that, and I'm guessing as and when new challenges come in, new ways of tackling them will also come up.
Yeah. It's just so important. And every decade of our life define itself in its way, right? How has your relationship with yourself has grown in past years and decades?
पता नहीं है. I don't really know because I don't really think about these things. Relationship with myself, I don't know. I love myself. Like I said, I used to think of myself as a selfish person. I still think that. I read. I find time for myself. I have the privilege to indulge in some of my wishes, like going to a certain place, traveling to a certain place, speaking to certain people, like having friends, having a social life. Sometimes even switching off everything and, being with myself. I think I do that, and I have always done that. So I have not really evolved into being this way. This is how I have been always. I have always had a very healthy relationship with myself. I think about myself a lot. I talk to myself a lot. I figure out. I am very comfortable in my own company. I have no issues being alone, no issues being in solitude, no issues in being lonely also. Doesn't matter. Like, matlab, wo the difference between lonely and alone wala hai na?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any. Thankfully, I've never had to be lonely so far in my life. But even if it does happen at one point of time, I don't think I'll have any problem, because, like I said, I have had a very healthy relationship with myself, and that is also why I have been able to question my privilege, question where I'm coming from, question my belief systems, and correct myself when I think I need to be corrected. So ये सारी चीजें मुझे लगता है कि मैंने करी है.
Yeah.
So I have been in my own corner for a very long time.
That's so cool. And you're right. If you have that self-worth and you love yourself deeply and you have that security inbuilt in your own self, that only allows the foundation for any kind of serious questioning to happen. Otherwise, everything dismantles very quickly. So you need to have that solid background, which
Yeah.
is cool.
Sometimes I think I might be too much in love with myself, because they're like, मैं ही सही हूँ, तुम क्या हो, तुम्हें तो कुछ पता भी नहीं, मैं ही सही हूँ. ये भी मेरे दिमाग में आता रहता है. Like, that is also something which I have this thing कि I will do it better. Like, like, I remember I went to the CJP protest and somebody's like, if Dharmendra Pradhan resigns, who do you think should be the education
बना
minister? I'm like, me. मुझे बना दो. मुझे बना दो, मैं सही काम कर लूंगी. So I wouldn't say I was joking, because I think I would do a very good job.
Yes. And you mentioned something in the very start, the very first question about being a jack of all trade. Like I have, I don't know, suffered from it, or been. Well, you are genuinely good at so many things, and then sometimes it comes with a cost, because then it's just what is it that you do and what you don't do, and sometimes hanging on to one thing for a long time becomes a challenge. Like it has been for me, and I have kind of grappled with it. Have you also faced it?
I have not thought of it as a challenge, because I have always loved doing a lot of things. मुझे लगता है कि ये थोड़ा सा ओवर अचीविंग बचपन वाला वो भी आ जाता है ना, ओवर अचीविंग ओवर परफॉर्मिंग वाला जो बच्चा था वो अभी भी है ही. So I have always been into a lot of things, and not to brag, but I have been good at a lot of things. म्यूजिक भी मुझे लगता है ठीक ठाक गा लेती हूँ. डांस भी मेरे को आता ही है. मतलब I probably, if I go to learn, then I'll be better, but then I do have natural rhythm, and ये क्योंकि वो एक तो म्यूजिक से भी आ जाता है. मम्मी भी मेरी सुर में गाती है, पिताजी भी मेरे इंस्ट्रूमेंट बजाते थे when they were young. So I think I get that from them as well. So, and plus sports maybe I have always been good. I was an athlete, running करती थी मैं. Then I used to play basketball. I played tennis for a very long time. I played football in college. I did taekwondo in college. So all of these things I have, and I've always liked doing a lot of things. And उससे थोड़ा सा ये भी होता है ना कि I don't need to excel. मतलब I would like to think that if I want to, I will be able to, but I like doing a lot of things, and I like being good at a lot of things. मुझे वो कभी challenge की तरह लगा नहीं, so it has never been like a real problem for me. Like I said, I've always liked being good at a number of things. So अभी भी मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है. For example, I have a knack for languages. So sometimes I will start learning a language. I'll learn it for 2 months, but then I'm a linguist, so I have that going for me. Anime देख लेंगे थोड़ा सा. So it has never been a challenge for me. But then again, like I said, this is also a privilege, because I got into a sarkari job. Like 2 years into my PhD, I got into a sarkari job. So I didn't really have to think about where my expertise is going to land me at, and how am I going to make a life out of that. So इसीलिए that has been very helpful also. उससे भी फायदा हुआ है.
Yeah.
So I have had the space to experiment with a number of things. I have had the space to experiment and be good at a number of things. Maybe not excel.
Yeah.
Like the whole adage is jack of all trades, master of none, but still better than the master of one. So
Yeah.
I may not be an expert of one, but I am a jack of all
No,
trades.
that's a good perspective.
I got into woodworking also during my whole.
I have seen that table you have made.
Yes. I made shelves in my cupboards a couple of days ago. I am making a chair right now, and then I will be making a bookshelf and all of these other things. So
Wonderful.
I don't excel. Like, I probably won't be able to sell my stuff at a market, but I do it and I know how to use power tools. I'm very happy.
And it's such an important point, Medusa, you mentioned, because most of the times, even our hobbies and interest have been, curtailed. I'm talking about population in general. Iska kya kaam hai? Like,
Yeah.
everything is not a means to an end. And of course, it's a privileged point of view. You need to have money, need to have, roof over your head and, a full stomach. And then you go into indulge into these things. But even there are so many households where even these basic things are done, but the kids are not, have not been given a chance to really go indulge themselves in their hobbies and not really become the best in that. And it has to
Yeah.
have a means to an end and start an earning out of it. Like, everything is not, again, maybe a capitalist residue
Yes.
here, that everything is a means to an end, which should not be. Yeah.
Why does everything need to have a value? Why does everything? Because capitalism or a market heavy society tells you that it needs to have a value.
Yeah.
You need to have a value. If you do not add value to the society, you are useless. Absolutely not. Why? Why cannot things be things just for the sake of being? Why a flower exists in this world because it's beautiful, because it's a flower. It doesn't need to have a value. क्योंकि अगर तुम्हारे डाइनिंग टेबल को या तुम्हारे घर को कोई फूल नहीं महका रहा है, does not mean that the fool does not have any value. Oh my god, like, this is like it's so frustrating sometimes when I think about it, about how it is robbing our children of the the joys and the beauties of just being there, just experiencing something for the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And वो joy से जो हम लोग rob कर रहे हैं हमारे पूरे generations को, बच्चों को, this how capitalism is ruining everything, how AI also nowadays is ruining everything. It's just sometimes it makes me so mad.
Yeah.
Because जंगल में जो फूल है, it's beautiful, it's there, it exists, it does not care whether it is useful or not, whether it is तुम्हारे घर की शोभा बढ़ा रहा है कि नहीं बढ़ा रहा है, it doesn't care, it just is there, it just exists. So उसी तरीके से मुझे लगता है हमारे हमारी generations को, if we were allowed more probably to enjoy these things, we would have been a better society, we would have been a more successful society.
So true. So true. And I think about it a lot. I had a very successful corporate job and I have quit multiple times. Like, I used to work at Microsoft, flying job. I quit because I thought I need to do something for society. Did that, wrote a book. Then I got employed again. Life happens. Then I worked for 4 years. I quit again. And, the kind of frowns and questions that come your way, even if you're an independent individual, is not funny, as if like you are wasting your life away. What you just mentioned about just being, it's so important. And I have a theory why just allowing people to be doesn't work for, again, those very minuscule billionaires. Because if you are satisfied with your own being, if you are happy the way you are, you're not going to buy those 15-step beauty program or whatever it needed to.
Or the whitening cream for your elbows. Oh my god, have you seen that?
Whitening cream for elbows.
There is whitening cream for elbows, there is whitening cream for underarms, there is whitening cream for knees. What other insecurity are you going to sell? Every single thing.
We can get into a whole different conversation. The whole industry is made by fueling insecurities. But in general, also, even if it is not women, beauty products, in general also, the idea of a successful person, a life well lived. Again, if you are educated, then it has to be a means to an end. If someone wants to just learn something for the sake of learning, as a grown up adult, it's like, और बच्चों को तो छोड़ ही दो, मतलब वो ना क्यों सीखना है क्या? It's not funny. So I guess there is a churning that's happening across the world, around the world, in very small segments where people are kind of waking up to it and maybe being a better aware parents, but that's a very significantly small number. But otherwise, हम market के कठपुतलियां बन के रह गए हैं. So I'm so happy that you said that we can just be our own being. I'm like, okay, so we are part of that lupt hoti prajati, but there are some people out there.
The thing that you said about idea of selling an idea of success, that's also like what looks like success. ठीक है, रजनीगंधा रजनीगंधा looks like that. मुंह में रजनीगंधा, कदमों में दुनिया. That's the idea of success. Like even to sell pan masala, you are selling an idea of what a successful person looks like or a successful man looks like. That is where I would like to come back to capitalism and how it is actively harming
Yeah.
human beings. Is if you just look at Nicobar, a very famous right-wing influencer talked about how this is going to bring development to Nicobar. How it is going to bring roads, how it is going to bring schools, how it is going to bring hospitals, etc. to Nicobar. The thing is, the Shompen tribe, or before that, the Jarva community was the first community in Andaman and Nicobar to actually get harmed because of these. There was another project which happened, and another link road which was
Link
happening
road,
in the
yeah,
Andaman
yeah.
Islands. Yeah. And because of that reason, the Jarva community is now reduced to around 100 and 150 to 200 people. It was a very active and 3,000 people strong community in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And it has now been reduced to that because of this link road which was being made. So the thing is, the Jarva community did not even have common cold before Indian mainlanders went in and brought with them all of these different diseases, because of which hundreds and hundreds of people died from common cold because they did not need the immunity. So communities that does not need hospitals, people so in tune with their environment that they sustain themselves from the environment, जिनका पानी स्वच्छ है, जिनकी नदियों का पानी स्वच्छ है, वो डायरेक्टली नदी से पानी पी सकते हैं, जिनकी हवा स्वच्छ है, जो हवा में सांस लेकर बीमार नहीं होते हैं, जिनका इम्यूनिटी weak है because they do not require the immunity from diseases like common cold and so on and so forth. उनको उनकी इंजरी होती है तो वो मर जाते हैं. अगर वो पैर में कट हो गया, हाथ में कट हो गया, तो पेड़ से वो लोग कुछ निकाल के छाल लगा लेते हैं,
Right.
उनको बेटर हो जाता है. People who are so enriched in their इंडिजिनस नॉलेज, देन उनको पता है कि कौन सा पत्ता क्या करता है, कौन सी चीज को कैसे उगाया जाता है, किस पौधे का, किस चिड़िया का नाम क्या है. दे हैव thousands and thousands of birds. They know the names of these birds. They know the habits of these birds. That is the knowledge that they have. You do not have that knowledge. You are illiterate in their surroundings.
Yeah.
So your definition of development is not development for them. These people, for the people in these indigenous islands, your idea of development of roads, what will they do with roads? Everything that they need is within their reach. They don't want to go out. They don't want to interact with you. You bring disease. You bring sexual harassment. You know that the cases of sexual assault in the Jarwa community increased by 1,600% after the road was made.
So, Medusa, that's a very important point you brought about the idea of development, because even if we leave apart the indigenous community versus mainlanders, even people who live in cities, the idea of development that has been forced on it is so skewed, because
Yes.
a developed nation or a country or a city is where you have public spaces, green spaces, public transport, edible, gardens, breathable air.
Like food that you can eat without washing.
Yeah, because only building highways and construction is not development, far from it. So in my mind, idea of a developed country or a city is where anyone or everyone can take the public transport, can rely on public health care, and have places to breathe and just be, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Since you mentioned books in your constant companion since childhood, I'm sure you have lots of favorites, but if you have to share a few that have been real influence on you, or they are all-time favorites, would you like to share a few names? Or
My all-time favorite, something which I think has had not just the book but the author herself has had a very important impact on my life, is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is absolute go-to. I remember like lines from it because I've read it so many times. And the ideas, because I had read Frankenstein when I was a child, and because my mother is an English professor, so I had these. I don't even know if you remember or not. They were these small, itna bite-size books, jo classic I don't remember the name of the company. They would publish these itna sa square hota tha, and it would be the classic text, some classic story, concised and written in a format कि बच्चे भी उसको
Hmm.
समझ सके.
Hmm.
तो I read Frankenstein for the first time as that. बचपन में मैंने वो पढ़ी थी Frankenstein as a horror story, and then I grow up and I get into my bachelor's in English literature, and I read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein again. And all this entirely new world opens up of all of these different ideas, the themes which are tackled in the book, the theme of creation, of male motherhood, of trying to be God, or the whole concept of how how humanity is flawed because we have this male mother, as this God, as this male mother, and that's why it's so flawed, because it's not complete, that emotion, etc., is not there, so on and so forth. And all of these different things are tackled. Loneliness is tackled in this book. Of course, it's a feminist treatise as well, because of the fact of how absent women are from this world.
Yeah.
And so all of these ideas are there in the book, and that's why it remains my absolute all-time favorite. New themes which come to light every time I read it. And of course, Mary Wollstonecraft's life. She was Mary Wollstonecraft pehle, and then she became Mary Shelley.
Yeah.
And she wrote this amazing book as a challenge. One night, three friends were just trapped in a house. There was a storm outside, and they just decided who can write the best horror story. And then she wrote it, and it became the first ever science fiction. Although the first ever science fiction is attributed to someone else, but it is science fiction if you actually look at it, because
Yeah.
it is about a scientist creating life out of body parts and other mechanical parts. So yeah, technically it is a science fiction. I do like to think of it as a science fiction, and there is an actual school of thought where it is thought of as a science fiction. Anyway, so that is my favorite book, all-time favorite. Right now, I'm reading Slavoj Zizek's Violence, and that is also because I want to understand how our society views violence, our society negotiates and rationalizes violence, and why it happens, and so on and so forth. The different kinds of violence which are there in this world. I would recommend everybody to read that. There's another book which I just read, which is The Village Without a Science Teacher. I am so sorry. I'm so bad with the names of
We'll look
authors.
it up. The Village Without a Science Teacher, right?
Without a Science Teacher. Beautiful, beautiful little book.
Hmm.
Everybody should read it. And then other recommendations. What other Tony Joseph's Early Indians. That's
Mhm.
also
That's
something
good one.
very, very important
Yeah.
for us to understand
Where we come from.
where we have come from.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just making notes. This is my favorite part because I always get something to add to my to read list. And as we come to close, Dr. Medusa, there are a lot of young audience who look up to you and probably wish to follow your footsteps in some way. What would be your advice to them?
In general, if you mean, for example, if I have to give them advice on living in
Yes.
this world, in these times, I don't know if I have any line, but I do have something which I usually give to women, because I am a woman on the internet, and it's a very different world. When you are a woman on the internet, you are exposed to a different kind of violence as well on the internet. That's a very new kind of violence which is happening, which is cyber crime, cyber violence, cyber rape threats, and all of these things are there. To the young people living in our country at this time, in this context, in the context that we are living in right now, do whatever you have to do to keep yourselves safe. It is important to speak out. Yes, it is important to stand with the oppressed, stand with the people who are sarvahara, who are vulnerable. It is extremely important to do that. However, if you think that you need to save yourself, you need to protect yourself, protect your mental health, I have seen there are people who are racked with guilt for having to do that. I want them to understand, I want the young people to understand that it is okay. It is okay to feel guilty. It is okay to try and protect yourself. It's fine. It's fine. There are people who will be able to take that load off your shoulders. I will take that load off your shoulders. There are multiple people in the world today that are ready to take this load off your shoulders. We will do that. Do not feel guilty about protecting yourself, because I know that that is something which is harming the mental health of a number of people who want to say things today but are not able to, because they have to think about their jobs, because they have to think about their children, they have to think about their houses that can be bulldozed, right? So I understand that, and anybody who watches me, anybody who looks up to me, I would like to rid them of this guilt. That is something that I would like to do. Yeah.
Oh, it's such a lovely gift. If people who really follow you and listen to this, because that's such an important factor. Nobody can always talk about all the issues, and we are living
Yes.
in difficult times. So that's such important message. And I'm sure there would be 110 new things we can talk about, but we don't have all night. So thank you so much, Dr. Medusa, for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.